This is a call for vengeance. Welcome to today's show. As of me recording this, there are currently 25 states that have signed a petition that are siding with the state of Texas versus the federal government. This narrative is one that we have to keep an eye on. And for people out there that don't understand how psychological operations work, understand this about the news. Things that actually make the news and are talked about in the news are put in the news for psychological reasons. They're not put there because they're going on and they want you to know about it. It doesn't mean that people aren't invading at the border. What's occurring at the border is people are being paid by our government to flee into this country with our tax money. The people coming across don't even have a clue what's actually going on. But they're doing this and they're staging this strategically when cameras are constantly on the border and they're showing it on liberal media and conservative media, done by design because they're building this up in your mind. Again, not to say it's not happening, but if they didn't want you to see it, they wouldn't show it to you, okay? If all these people were flooding in the border and they didn't want you to know about it, you wouldn't know about it because it wouldn't be on the mainstream news. Maybe some people would upload it from their phones, etc. But the reality is if the government didn't want you to know that all these people were coming in, if they didn't want you to know that they're doing funny little things to gain people's trust, like bus people from Florida to Nantucket or from Texas to New York, they wouldn't tell you about it. In fact, if it was being flooded down there, okay, and they didn't want you to know about it, they would keep people with their cell phones away from the actual border and not allow them to film them crossing the border. So they're telling us and showing us this by design. On the flip side, for anybody out there that thinks that, oh, well, you know, maybe the news starts to show us stuff about the Republicans and the Democrats, and they do try to gaslight and work people, but they overall tell us actual news. It's not true. Because what occurred in Maui? Has anybody heard a boo about anything going on in Maui? Now, when Maui occurred, it would have been pretty hard for them to completely hide what was happening because people were uploading footages of the island on fire. There were U.S. citizens there. There were citizens from all around the earth who were on the island. So people were finding out about it. So what happened? Well, they immediately tried to use it as climate change. But what was going on? Everybody was debunking it, including civilians on that island, that there was no chance at all, that there was an actual climate disaster, that it was sabotage. Most people, of course, like myself, were talking about direct energy weapons. Then you had the civilians who were reporting all of these children missing, who were reporting that no sirens went off. And of course, like I covered months ago, or another YouTuber, I should say, covered months ago, there was actually a simulation event, because there always is, occurring at the same time. All the politicians in the island were meeting over in Hawaii discussing what would happen if there was a dangerous wildfire as it occurred, because that's their script, that's their motto. It always happens while they're doing a drill, right? Look no further than any of the other events that have happened, that school events that occur, or the 11th day of September, or the Boston Marathon. So while that event occurred, they did not expect the narrative to be what it was. So quietly, they swept the entire thing about Maui under the rug. You don't hear about it ever on the news anymore. It's not because people aren't asking. It's not because there's no news to report, because clearly there's news to report. People want to know what happened to the citizens in Lahaina. Are they back on their homes? Are they rebuilding their homes? A lot of us want to see, are they putting in smart cities? They don't want you to see what's going on over there. And the only way you can find out is by following YouTubers or TikTokers or people on Twitter who are photographing and filming what's happening over there. So the mainstream media, this is what we have to look at, right? When they tell us and show us stuff, it's done by design. If something like Maui occurs, when it occurs, when they wipe out an entire island like that, they put it on the news because they can't hide that from you. Then they let it disappear in thin air because they see from all the data that the internet companies provide our government, because our government pretty much is the internet companies, how many people were calling it a direct energy weapon. How many people were saying it wasn't a climate disaster? And suddenly you don't hear about Oprah. You don't hear about the Blue Roofs. You don't hear about The Rock. You don't hear about any of these people because everybody exposed it for what it was. So it quietly just goes away. On the border, it's a perfect example of what they want you to know about because they're using the border as a way to continue to desensitize people into states separating from, this is literally civil war, states separating from one another, right? So now what we have is, conveniently, right, every single conservative state is signing petitions and siding with Texas over the federal government, right? Not one liberal state is out there saying, hey, we agree Texas should protect the border, right? On the other side of it, we've heard nothing but complaints in cities like New York, which are completely lib-run, have been completely destroyed on purpose. And we hear citizens saying, this is ridiculous. We actually using our tax money to house all these people. There's a problem here. So the mayor and the governor come out and they say, well, we can't take on any more people, et cetera. But they refuse to sign the petition, of course, because Florida is not going to be a part of anything with a conservative state. So they were trying to establish how conservative states are going to have different laws, different rules are going to be opposed to the federal government. Remember, again, like I said earlier, the federal government can bring about martial law if need be. Can states bring about martial law? Yes, they can, but so can the federal government. It's very clear that the globalists and the federal government are one and the same. Now, we could say that about all the states because all of the governors in place, all the conservatives are compromised. They're playing you. They're hurting you, and they're all working for the globalists. Every one of them is. That's why this is happening right now. That's why it's happening now and not 20 years ago, because they've needed every single person to be in place to do this. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. There's nobody out there that isn't working for them. Okay, that's why every conservative is signing it. No conservative is opposed to it. Oh, so now we see a map that they're showing us, right, of all the states that have signed the petition, right? Isn't it convenient? A lot of them are lumped together, and a lot of it looks like that map that I showed you from the movie The Civil War, right? I put it in a couple of my videos already, and I've shown the trailer for Civil War, which is also not a coincidence. Just like all these movies that have been desensitizing people over the last decade or two about Civil War, about civil unrest, these purge movies, etc. Look at the difference between the map and the Civil War movie, right? You have the Second Republic of Texas and the Florida Alliance, okay? And this is what they're showing us as of today, which was posted and shared over on the website by a subscriber by the name of Willow Fox, who posted this in the forum, where everybody's sharing lots of great information. I highly recommend everybody get over there to the website and join the website so you could share and learn information like this. Because again, this stuff's going to get scrubbed off of YouTube and scrubbed off the internet. So this is the map that they're showing everybody. Look at the comparisons between the two, right? You see on the bottom, okay, what they're calling in the movie the Florida Alliance. And again, I'm not saying that this map from the movie is going to be verbatim, but it's going to be very similar, just like they're showing us right now. Look at the Western forces, right? Up there. And then, of course, the Republic of California. So you see a very similar mapping because it's going to be in clusters like that. States aren't going to be too much, off of one another, where I'm saying you're going to have connecting states with each other that are all conservative. And then on the other end, and then, of course, you'll have the Northeast, which is obviously very likely to be fully compromised, globalist, smart city, etc. All Democrat states over, talking about New York. They've turned Pennsylvania into a Democratic state, even though the majority of people there are not Democrats. Okay, they've done it by design because of whatever they have planned as far as mapping this out. That's why these states that are normally flip states like New Jersey, Pennsylvania are now full-on Democrat states, and nobody's suspicious about why states that constantly never were like one-sided, would always go back and forth, are being shown as and presented to us as Democratic states, right? Same with Republican states like Florida. It was a state that was always a flip state. Now it's a fully conservative state. Okay, this is all done by design. So the other thing we have to keep in mind on, like I've been talking about for a little while now, okay, this is the border, right? And this will obviously have stuff to do with Florida, all of the southern border. But other issues that the Supreme Court are fighting against, like abortion, these are big issues for what they're going to do here, because they could easily come out and they could, and I guarantee you that they will, because there's going to be more than just the immigration stuff that's going to lead to this civil unrest. Okay, it's going to have to do with rights. So they're going to tell people, and they're going to pass laws where in conservative states like Texas, you cannot get an abortion, it's illegal. They'll also very likely keep an eye out for stories about rights being taken away from anybody who's LGBT. In other words, gay marriage will probably be the easy topic for them to do, where they'll come out and they'll say, hey, Florida with DeSantis are now banning gay marriage, right? So then all the gay people in the state will likely flee the state and go to a safe haven state. These are the types of things. This is why I talk about psychological operation, because it's psychological, okay? But they're also going to force us into it. So they've been desensitizing people into preparing for separation of, states via politics. They've been doing that for a while. That's a lot of the stuff they've been doing with the voting. convincing people, oh, well, this state's, the voting's rigged. All the voting's rigged, okay? But they're trying to convince people like, oh, this state, is a conservative state normally. Now it's a Democratic state. They're getting people in the mindset of states that are completely liberal and states that are completely conservative. Texas and Florida, New York, California, Chicago, or Illinois, I should say. These are ones that they're using as the big ones. Then the rest of it, they're going to map it out as far as safe haven states. So they're not going to force you in per se, but people will feel forced into these states. And then the other thing that we all have to remember is Disease X, because that's the big elephant in the room. All of this stuff with the border, et cetera, everyone's focusing on it. Do not forget about another variant coming through here, okay? Because all of the thing, I just talked about this over on the website, and I'll just try to sugarcoat it over here. All of the stuff that occurred with the last outbreak was to set up all of these laws and pass all of these bills to have them in place for this next wave that's coming. When this next wave occurs, the state is going to be able to throw you in quarantine camps. They're going to be able to throw you out of your homes because the governments that are in place have signed these orders. Okay? The conservative states will not have that stuff. Thus, people like us will have to be, and eventually, unless we somehow infiltrate, be herded into those states. Okay, so Disease X is going to linger while all this other stuff does. So let's just recap all the stuff lingering for state division. The migration problem, right? All the conservative states are now turning on the federal government, siding with Texas, all the conservative states, right? This is very similar to a lot of the stuff we heard with the union. And the other things will be those bullet points: gay marriage, gay rights, hate crimes, okay? Abortion rights. Those will all be mechanisms they use. Then they throw in Disease X. And Democrats are going to clamor for more masking, for more mandates, because they're going to go, oh, we already went through this. We're sick of going through. We're sick of these people who are conspiracy nuts. They've desensitized everybody to it. Everybody's pitted against each other over it. Even though Donald Trump's the one who rolled it out, by the way, the potion, it's a left versus right issue. And it's probably the biggest one because people will not put certain things inside their body because the government mandates it. So that'll ultimately be the big thing they use to herd people into specific states. Now, another thing I want to just point out is what was shared over on the website, which was very interesting and somewhat funny as well, was Andrew Jackson. Jesus is King is the subscriber on the website, posts a lot of great stuff. And they shared this, and it's pretty incredible, right? This is Andrew Jackson in 1833. Yes, 33. I must earnestly and respectfully press upon Congress the importance of abstaining from all apparitions which are not absolutely required for the public interest and authorized by the powers clearly delegated in the United States. We are beginning a new era in our government. The national debt, which has so long been a burden on the Treasury, will be finally discharged in the course of the ensuing year. And of course, that'll be one of the caveats with the globalist Democrat states. Okay, we've already seen them hinting at this, right? What have they been talking about? Reparations, giving black people money because of slavery, wiping out student debt, wiping out debt in general. This will be a big thing. Even the people actually realize the illusion of debt is really what it is, okay? But they're fearful of all this stuff they constantly hear from the TV, death and taxes, all that stuff. This will be a huge mechanism they use as well. And it's pretty hilarious that then it sounds very similar to now in 1833, right? We're beginning a new era of our government. The national debt, which has so long been a burden on the Treasury, will finally be discharged, right? So wiping out the debt of the people. Think about it. Now think about all these things that people are opposed to on one side versus the other side. It's a different way of life, and they're going to gaslight people with these events. So the border is just one of many. But the thing with the border that's important to note is how we are seeing the conservative states side with the state of Texas and the liberal states side with the federal government. The other thing that's important to note is people out there who are in an uproar about what's happening. It's happening by design, okay? It's happening by design. The people at the border are going to get in here until the states separate. And they're telling you this for a reason. They're driving you crazy with this story by design, because this is one of those stories that's going to make you flee to separate states. This is one of the stories that's going to put have civilians put their foot down and side with the state of Texas versus the federal government. These are things they want done. That's why the story's out there. That's why they gaslight the story. They film the people crossing who are paid by our government to cross. It's a production. Okay, and that's why on the flip side, how PSYOPs work, they don't show you anything going on Maui anymore. All of this is done by design. That's what's happening. That's what's happening at the border, they tell us. And that's what's happening in Maui. They don't tell us, right? They only tell you what they want to tell you because there's a reason for it, not to inform you. It's to manipulate you, to play with your emotions and herd you psychologically where they physically want you to go, okay? A reminder, if you haven't subbed to my other 2 channels yet, do so now. It is very, very important. I'm going to do more deep dives into the psychology of a lot of these things. I'm also going to be possibly live streaming on those channels. Every time I tried to get around to that, the channels seem to go bye-bye. So make sure you sub to them. I have a video going up on the Gothard Tunnel on one of them. You might want to check out if you're not familiar. So check them out, definitely. Hope to see more people on the website. Thanks again for being here, everybody. God bless you, as always, and your families.